right here on Newsmakers. I'm Ashmat Kumar. The Supreme Court today reserved its order on a plea seeking a stay on fresh issue of electoral bonds, but raised concerns over its potential misuse. Now, Chief Justice Bobde said that there is a need for the government to look into the use of these funds received by political parties. Now, the plea filed by the Association for Democratic Reforms, or ADR, called for a stay on the April sale of electoral bonds in view of the upcoming state elections. Now, they highlighted that electoral bonds provided anonymity to those funding political parties and added that it allowed shell companies of large corporates to route bribe money to political parties with complete anonymity. Now, the centre, however, defended the electoral bond, saying that there was no question of misuse of political parties, misuse of these funds, as political parties were required to file their IT returns. Now, the Election Commission, meanwhile, took a more nuanced position. It said that while they do not oppose the electoral bonds, but did call for better transparency, for more transparency. In fact, to take this conversation forward, we're now joined by two former Chief Election Commissioners. That's T.S. Krishnamurthy as well as Mr. S.Y. Qureshi. Gopal Krishna Agarwal from the national spokesperson of the BJP will be joining us shortly, as well as we have with us retired Major General Anil Verma, the head of Association for Democratic Reforms. They've all joined us. Gentlemen, a very good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate the patience. Mr. S.Y. Qureshi, if I may come to you first. They say that sunlight is the best disinfectant. With that having been said, the question is that what is the rationale that has perhaps convinced the government that there is a need for anonymity with respect to donors? That is the big question here. That is at the heart of the issue. Why provide that sense of anonymity to donors who are contributing to political parties? Why create this aura about it? Why put it up on a pedestal? Mr. Qureshi.
Actually, that's a question that should be posed to the government, and which is what all of us have been doing, including the Election Commission. And Supreme Court is going to ask them the same question. We feel that this is definitely the violation of the principle of transparency. We used to have transparency earlier. Every donation of more than 20,000 was to be reported to the Election Commission of India. Now even 20 crores or 200 crores will not be known who gave how much money to whom. And the reason given is that the donors want secrecy. Now, donors want secrecy is the most suspicious thing. Why do they want secrecy? Because they want to hide the quid pro quo, the licenses, the contracts that they get, the bank loans they get with which they run away. Now, they have to hide and cover up that. We don't know what kind of favors are taking place behind the scene. So the government's stand is absolutely indefensible and ridiculous, and it has to be called out.
Right, so that's the government that needs to do the explaining. That's Mr. Qureshi's position. Mr. Krishnamurthy, if I may come to you again, the issue of anonymity, the question is, voters don't know which companies, which corporates, who are these donors to political parties. Even for that matter, shareholders don't know for whom the companies in question are in fact donating money to. So these questions remain unanswered. Would you share similar thoughts as Mr. Qureshi on the issue of anonymity of donors to political parties?
As far as these electoral bonds are concerned, they were introduced on the ground that it will promote transparency. I do not know what transparency has been promoted by this. It is like, they say the payment is done through the bank, so it is transparent. But who the donor is, nobody knows. It is like crossing half the well. You don't cross the well completely, but you fall into the well if you cross half the well. This half transparency is dangerous. It is not good for the quality of democracy. And there are two criticisms about this, because it enables corporates to give any amount of money without disclosing their identity. And it is only known to the bank and to the recipient as to who has given the money. The voters do not know about it. Finally, there is a criticism that a ruling party has an advantage over getting more money through this method than any other method. I strongly criticize this measure, and it does not promote transparency at all. It needs to be reviewed, reconsidered, and this method of funding political parties will only increase the electoral expenditure and not promote transparency.
Right, Mr. Krishnamurthy. Very interesting here. Two former Chief Election Commissioners expressing grave apprehensions on the issue of transparency that this system brings about. Mr. Gopal Krishna Agarwal, the national spokesperson of BJP. You've also joined us. Quick thoughts here. We have two former chief election commissioners on the show saying that there are so many issues which are in fact systemic to these electoral bonds. No transparency. There is very limited, no details available with respect to who the donors are. There is also no clarity about which are these companies that are donating money. So again, a number of questions being asked. Mr. Gopal Krishna Agarwal, what would your defense be here? Because the sense is that the Supreme Court will be asking questions to you, the government, to give answers as to why this system works better than what we've had so far.
I would just mention here two important things. The first and foremost is that what is the problem today, that there was complete black money. There was every transaction in the election was moving through cash transactions only, basically. And I understand that finally it is the Supreme Court which will decide. There are certain issues that we accept, that even with the electoral bond, you cannot ensure a complete transparency because some sort of information is not going to the ultimate voters. But basically, the supply side of the black money or corruption will come down out of it. It's a one step forward towards the transparency in the electoral funding. Ultimately, what was happening, the complete expenditure in the election process was non-transparent, and it was happening through cash transactions, basically.
Point one, Mr. Gopal, that's point one that you're making, that it takes out black money, which is the other point that you were trying to make.
Yeah. The other point is that ultimately it is not this bonds alone. You have to also look into that the government's effort on that. There will be no cash receipt above 2,000 rupees. That's also which has been reduced from 20,000 to 2,000. Earlier, everybody was just anonymously collecting 20,000 just without any details. So here, at least the audit trail has been established. And the Election Commission, everything in RBI and banking channels do have the records for establishing audit trail. In case of any investigation or any manipulation or misappropriation, etc., the information will be available. I accept that this is not the ultimate transparency that we want in the electoral funding and expenditure, etc. But one part of at least supply side of the black money completely moving away, using the cash transactions, completely going out of the whole domain of control.
Right, Mr. Gopal. So that's an interesting concession that you're making here, that it's not a perfect system. There is room for improvement. We'll, in fact, come back and take the views of two former chief election commissioners. We'll come back to them shortly. But let's go across to first to retired Major General Mr. Anil Verma. You're a part of ADR, which is the petitioner here. The point that I want to, in fact, take across to you is, in fact, the submission that Mr. Gopal made with respect to this system. That's, of course, the claim made from the government side that this system helps combat black money. And I will ask you this question, Mr. Verma, in light of the concept of aggregators, which was raised today before the Supreme Court. The concept of aggregators that was raised by the Council for ADR was that the bonds themselves can be, in fact, procured by an aggregator and then sold for cash, for black money to other parties. That is the concern that was raised before the Apex Court. If I can just have your quick thoughts in how successful this electoral bond system can be in combating black money, especially in light of aggregators.
We don't think it will be combating black money as mentioned by the BJP spokesperson, for the simple reason that there are shell companies which can donate or rather buy electoral bonds and donate to the companies. Foreign funding is permitted because the subsidiaries, Indian subsidiaries of foreign companies can. So there is an element of foreign influence to the elections also. And the main thing is, why is the government fighting for hiding the, identity of the donors? There is no need. I mean, there is not a convincing argument which they have been all along saying, because of the simple reason that political party funding has to be totally transparent. Even earlier, 60 to 70% of the amount of money which used to be coming to the political was from unknown sources. Now, even now, as far as the public is concerned, this is from unknown sources, because only the government can come to know through the State Bank of India who is donating to which political party. That apart, there are a lot of other loopholes in the scheme. Right now, even ineligible political parties are getting money through the electoral bonds. We had filed an RTI with the Election Commission and given out a report in which we have stated that. There are other issues like 6,500 crore rupees has been already donated to political parties since the inception of the scheme in January 2018. Obviously, this has become a very popular mode of donations because the donor is happy their identity is not disclosed. But who are those donors? That nobody knows.
General Verma, if I
and
may
that is
interject.
the hallmark of democracy.
Yes, General Verma. Yes, General Verma. So very interesting points that you've made, that there are very systemic issues here. Let me also get your thoughts, General Verma, on the issue that was in fact red flagged today by the Chief Justice himself. The question that he raised was, and was dramatically different from the concerns raised by ADR, is that once these funds are in fact put across to the political parties, what checks and balances, if any, are there against misuse of these funds that are routed through electoral bonds for malicious purposes? He gave the example of what if a political party raises funds via electoral bonds and then uses those funds to mobilize violent protests. If I can just have your thoughts on that, General Verma, because that is an observation that was made by the Chief Justice himself. General Verma.
See, earlier, the annual reports, the donation reports and contribution reports, as they are called, duly audited, are submitted to the Election Commission of India, and they give a breakdown of on what the money has been spent. Now, as far as the electoral bonds are concerned, in their contribution reports, the political parties are required to only state the amount, 100 crores received from electoral bonds. How that has been used, we don't know. Nobody knows. So that is a valid concern which has been raised by the Chief Justice. So unless and until, these things are put out in the public domain, how will we come to know where the money is coming from and what is it being used for?
So again, a two-part question being raised here, General Verma. Thank you for that. Who is funding the political parties and how the money is being used? Mr. T.S. Krishnamurthy, if I can just quickly have your thoughts in. One of the concessions that Mr. Gopal had made is that there is significant room for improvement. It's not a perfect system. Mr. Krishnamurthy, if I can just have your thoughts going forward, which are perhaps the best ways of ensuring that there is some degree of reform, there is more transparency, more sunlight, as they say, as the best disinfectant?
I am amused at the suggestion that it is the first step towards fighting black money. I am afraid it is not. On the other hand, it intensifies operation of black money without payment of any tax. It's a voluntary disclosure or conversion of black money into white without paying any taxes. It is certainly not a step in the direction of fighting black money. Secondly, I would like to say that the money that is being sent through the electoral bonds also encourages many bogus associations to become political parties, get this money and use for nefarious and questionable practices. Of course, by the time you examine or audit these things, it will take its own time. But the damage is done by converting black money into white for associations which may not be truly political, but which may be using it for anti-national activities. So there are better methods of regulating this funding of the political parties. I have always held the view that there should be a national election fund. The obnoxious nexus between corporates and the political parties should be snapped, and the contribution by corporates and the individuals can be to the national election fund with 100% tax exemption. The fund can be built over a period of time, and the entire amount should be used on the basis of guidelines to be drawn in consultation with all registered political or recognized political parties. We must change this system. The existing system is totally undesirable. It has very grave consequences. The sooner it is done, the better it is. This is not the way to fight black money. This is not the way to bring transparency in electoral funding. So I strongly believe the government should seriously reconsider and bring out some other alternatives.
Yes,
Suggestions have been given by
giving us. Right. So that's a very long-term suggestion that you're giving us, that how about having a national fund of sorts. Mr. S.Y. Qureshi, final thoughts here. That's, of course, a long-term suggestion that Mr. Krishnamurthy has given us. In the short term, the question that's before the Supreme Court is, what do we do for now? April 1st is the date that electoral bonds will be issued. What do we do for now? State elections around the corner. Is this perhaps the best strategy going forward, staying the electoral bond process itself and perhaps leaving the field open? Is that the answer? Is that a recommendation, a suggestion, a plea that you would make before the Supreme Court, Mr. Qureshi?
30-second solution. Let the system as it is, let it continue. Only the who has donated how much to whom should be made public, simple, and all other objections are withdrawn. Let us know who has donated what to whom. And even the long-term solution is not such a complicated thing. It can be done in half an hour. So even that should be considered very seriously, as Mr. Krishnamurthy had suggested. That's what I think I've been saying the same thing. Let's have a national election fund. Everybody donate to the fund, and from there it is allocated to the party according to their performance.
I only ask you this question, Mr. Qureshi, because what fell from the Election Commission, very brief arguments exchange, what fell from the EC today was that if this system is dispensed with, then what you have essentially is the wild, wild west in terms of cash transfers, in terms of political parties, in terms of lack of accountability. So the EC seems to be saying right now that this may not be the best system, but it's still better than cash transfers. Mr. Qureshi.
Yeah, but that's why what I have suggested is the best system. Let the current system continue with the only disclosure clause added that the donor and donee should be known to the public. People want to know, and that is very important. That is the transparency which Finance Minister wanted, spelled out in his budget speech where he introduced it. So he expressed his concern that without transparency of political funding, free and fair elections are not possible, and we have not been able to achieve it in 70 years. Therefore, what he introduced was the secrecy.
Fair enough. We're completely out of time here. Mr. Gopal, I'll just come to you very briefly for 30 seconds. We have very, very strong voices coming in, two former chief election commissioners. Even the current election commission says that there is need for reform. Will we be seeing in the future the Solicitor General, the Attorney General appearing before the Supreme Court and saying that, yes, we embrace these suggestions for reform? Because while the government has been defending electoral bonds, there has been nothing that has come from the government that says, look, there are systemic problems and that we need to fix it by having reforms. We haven't heard that yet from either the Solicitor General or the Attorney General. Is this what we can perhaps expect in the days to come before the Supreme Court?
No, but we have to also understand that it is all the political parties have to categorically and detail file all their income tax returns, which contains all the details, where expenditure has come, where from money has come, all those list of donors, etc., have to be given to the Election Commission, and that they have all the information. And you see, we have been putting up from the Election Commission restriction on the amount of expenditure into election by the Assembly or the Central. That has not held. So we have moved from there because it was moving from complete cash transactions in the electoral process. I think this is a one step ahead, that at least on the expenditure side, the political parties have now gone into putting up more audit trail into their expenditure side. The cash donations of 20,000 has been restricted. Election Commission and the Income Tax Department is very strict on the return filing, timely return, complete audit.
Move for reform anytime soon.
See all these, yeah.
Mr. Gopal, you're telling us there is no move for reform anytime soon. Despite your admission, you're telling us that there is no move for reform anytime soon.
At present,
you're telling us the system is good enough the way it works. IT returns being filed, accountability being ensured.
Yeah. Ultimately, it is for the Supreme Court.
Fair enough.
Finally,
Closing thoughts. Yeah. Fair enough. So you'll wait for the Supreme Court to give clarity. Justice Bobde today reserving his judgment, and hopefully will give more clarity on the way forward and how perhaps the system needs to be taken forward. Gentlemen, appreciate you taking out time this evening for us and sharing your thoughts and perspective with the viewers of CNBC TV 18. Thank you for your time. We hope for the best. Supreme Court, of course, Chief Justice will be coming out with more clarity. The judgment today being reserved by the Apex Court. On that note, let's slip into a very short break. We'll come back with a lot more news and updates right here on CNBC TV 18. In exactly a month from today, the senior-most judge in the Supreme Court after the Chief Justice, that's Justice N.V. Ramana, will be taking over the reins from the current Chief Justice of India, Justice Bobde. In fact, what can we expect? What do we know about our new and the 48th Chief Justice of India? Well, we decided to take a quick look at the brief history behind the man himself, Justice N.V. Ramana. Now, first up, his name has already been recommended by the current Chief Justice, Justice Bobde. That's the normal judicial protocol that the outgoing Chief Justice writes a letter to the Law Ministry recommending the name of the next senior-most judge, which in this case happens to be Justice N.V. Ramana. Now, he's due to retire. Justice Bobde is due to retire on April 23rd, which is just about a little shy of a month. Subsequently, what we understand is that Justice N.V. Ramana will take over the baton as the 48th Chief Justice. He'll do so on April 24th. That's when he'll officially be sworn in as the Chief Justice of India. His tenure, mind you, the last 10 years will be about one of the longest tenures that we have of a Chief Justice. Tenure is expected to last over 16 months. So again, a long tenure is what we can expect from Justice Ramana. A brief look at his history. Well, he has been the Chief Justice of the Delhi High Court. In fact, he was elevated to the Supreme Court after his tenure in February 2014. So he's been in the Supreme Court corridors since then, since February of 2014. He belongs to an agricultural family from the state of Andhra Pradesh. He's considered to be a religious man. In fact, he's been spotted at various temples in the south of India. So he's considered to be a religious man as well. In terms of his contributions on the judicial side, well, there are very many. This is just a quick look, a quick pick of some of the key cases in which he was, in fact, on the part of the bench. The CJI's office coming under the RTI, he was a part of the bench that gave the judgment in that. In fact, he was also a part of the bench that had asked for a review of internet suspension in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. He, in fact, also propounded another principle as a part of a different bench where he said that the value of a woman's work at home carried the same value as her office-going husband. Now, that's, of course, as a part of his judicial contributions, but there's also been a wee bit of controversy. That's the Amravati land scam. Keep in mind that the Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister, Jagan Mohan Reddy, alleged involvement of Justice Ramana's family in the Amravati land scam. Towards that end, in fact, the Andhra Pradesh High Court had ordered a stay on the probe. The Andhra government had moved the Supreme Court, asking for lifting of that stay, asking for a probe against Justice N.V. Ramana's family. What happened thereafter, and this is the update that came today, the Supreme Court has dismissed the Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister's complaint after an in-house procedure, holding that this in-house procedure is in fact confidential. So a wee bit of controversy as well about the man Justice N.V. Ramana, but clearly the bigger takeaway is that he steps in at a challenging time, and going forward he will be sworn in as the 48th Chief Justice of India come April 24th. Well, that's it for now. Our special broadcast right here on CNBC TV 18. For more news and updates, keep watching CNBC TV 18.